All through the campaign, we heard it. This time it's different. He's learned his lesson. He has the right people around him now. It was a chorus of denial from people who should have known better. It has been just 1 week after the next of total, absolute betrayal on everything that he ran on. It's not just a failure to achieve goals, it's a deliberate reversal on his most fundamental promises. Let's look at the litany of lies. Trump promised no new wars. A simple, clear promise. Yet he bombs Yemen. He bombed Somalia over 50 times. He bombs Iran. The promise wasn't just broken, it was shattered into a million pieces. Then there was the promise of mass deportations. He was going to round everyone up, the largest deportation operation in American history. The monthly average is 14,500. At this rate, when all is said and done, he will have deported fewer people than Barack Obama, the man his supporters called the deporter-in-chief. And while he's failing at that, he's actively talking about giving a massive amnesty to all the illegal farm workers and hospitality workers. So, the great promise of mass deportations has quietly morphed into a de facto amnesty program. It's another promise broken. And what about the promise of transparency? We were going to get the truth about Epstein, about JFK, about all of it. The swamp was going to be exposed. Instead, what did we get last week? A quiet little memo from the Department of Justice. It says that there will be no further disclosures on the Epstein case. Case closed. No further investigation, no further information for the public. It's done, buried. The swamp didn't get drained, it just installed a new filtration system to hide the filth. Another promise broken. Every single week, it is something like this. And here we are again, this time with Ukraine. This was supposed to be the easiest one. Remember the promise? Trump said, "I will have the war over before I even take office." He said it over and over. "I will end the war in 24 hours. I will end it after the election, before the inauguration." It was his signature foreign policy claim. Well, it's July of 2025 now. The war is obviously still going on. Russia is in the middle of its brutal summer offensive. It is gaining more territory than at any point since the war started back in 2022. Trump has tried to make a deal over and over again, but has achieved absolutely no success, in spite of every threat and all the nonsense and fanfare. Nothing's happening. And so then, Trump makes an announcement. He says we're actually going to double down on the Biden administration's support for Ukraine. He issues a 50-day ultimatum to Russia and says that if Russia does not make a deal, then we're going to send Patriot missile defense systems to Ukraine, and we're actually going to put more sanctions on Russia. We're going to put secondary sanctions on them. This is from the Washington Post. It says President Trump will require Europeans to pay for the new weapons, which will include Patriot air defense systems that Zelensky has been begging for. And then those European countries will buy replacements from the US defense industry. So the military-industrial complex gets paid, the war continues, and Trump gets to pretend he's being tough on our allies. The move, by the way, drew praise from Senators Richard Blumenthal and Lindsey Graham. When Lindsey Graham is endorsing your foreign policy, you know you have failed. So, once again, Trump has a deadline. 50 days for Russia to make peace, or else. He's going to give Ukraine more weapons, which he already did. There was a temporary pause, and Trump just lifted it. Ukraine is getting all these weapons again, just like under Biden. He's threatening to send more weapons and more sanctions. The secondary sanctions are a 100% tariff on any country that does business with Russia. That means China, that means India. It's not going to happen. It's a fantasy. In addition to that, Trump also apparently encouraged Zelensky to bomb Moscow. This is from the Financial Times. It says Trump asked President Zelensky if his forces were capable of striking Moscow if the US provided longer-range weapons. Can you hit Moscow? Can you hit St. Petersburg, too? Trump reportedly asked. The White House later confirmed the conversation took place but insisted Trump was not encouraging more killing. They said he was merely asking a question. Right. When the President of the United States asks a wartime leader if he has the capability to bomb the capital of a nuclear-armed adversary, he's not just asking. He's sending a signal of reckless escalation. So here we are. The war rages on, the weapons shipments haven't stopped, we're sending more, and we're talking about striking deeper into Russia. How did we get here? Trump, as always, overpromised and is now under-delivering. He said this was a Biden-era war, that it would have never happened with him in charge. He said he'd magically end it, and everyone who wanted to believe it, believed it. But why would anybody believe that? You have to understand the history. This is not a Democrat war. This war was brought to you by Bill Clinton, George W. Bush, Barack Obama, Donald Trump, and Joe Biden. Every single president since George H.W. Bush had a hand in creating this conflict. There are two key factors. The first one is well known: NATO expansion. In 1991, the Soviet Union collapsed, and a verbal guarantee was given to Russia that NATO would not expand eastward. That promise was immediately broken. NATO pushed further and further east, putting its military bases and soldiers closer and closer to Russia's borders. In 2008, Putin drew a clear red line: NATO cannot expand into Georgia or Ukraine. If NATO expanded into Ukraine, Russia's naval base in Crimea, which hosts their Black Sea Fleet, would fall into the hands of a hostile alliance. They would lose their only year-round warm water port. It was strategically unacceptable. Of course, NATO kept pushing, leading to the 2014 coup, Russia seizing Crimea, and the war in the Donbass. But here's the other factor people don't know about, concerning missile defense. After the Soviet Union fell, the United States started ripping apart all the arms control treaties that kept the peace during the Cold War. In the early 2000s, George W. Bush pulled out of the Anti-Ballistic Missile Treaty. That treaty was based on the principle of mutually assured destruction, the idea that because we were both defenseless against each other's nukes, neither side would ever start a war. By pulling out, Bush restarted the arms race. We build missile shields, so Russia builds hypersonic missiles that can get through them. Then, what does Donald Trump do in his first term? He pulls us out of the Intermediate Nuclear Forces Treaty. And what that does is it allows the United States to put intermediate-range missiles in Eastern Europe, missiles that can hit Moscow and St. Petersburg. This is what Putin came to discuss with Trump in 2020. He offered a moratorium on these missiles, with mutual inspections. Trump wouldn't even read the letter. So Trump got us here. In his first term, he started providing Ukraine with lethal aid, where Obama only gave non-lethal aid. He pulled out of the INF Treaty. He put more sanctions on Russia. He, just like Obama and just like Biden, walked us into this war. And people expected that this time, he was going to magically end it. It's a classic overpromise, underdeliver. I'm sure he went in thinking he could do it, that all he had to do was threaten Russia and they would come to the table. He made all these big, embarrassing public overtures, pleading with them to make a deal. But Russia is not willing to stop, because they haven't achieved their aims. They want Ukraine to never join NATO, they want the territory they've taken, and they want Ukraine to be demilitarized. And why would they stop? They're making advances right now. So finally, Trump says, "All right, I've seen enough. You have 50 more days." After begging and pleading for 9 months, he says now he's really going to get serious. It's not working. Russia is not buying it. You want to know why? Because they've heard it all before. How about Iran's deadline? Trump didn't enforce it. How about the trade war with China? Trump begged them to call the White House. He did it with illegal immigration. You must self-deport or else. And then, never mind, you can stay. Trump always chickens out. He talks tough, makes these big, maximalist demands, and then he totally backs down. The Russians see this. Their foreign minister, Sergei Lavrov, publicly brushed it aside. He said, 50 days. It used to be 24 hours. It used to be 100 days. We've been through all of this. They're calling his bluff. They're saying, what are you going to do? Impose more sanctions? How many more can you even impose? You think you're going to put sanctions on China and India and actually enforce them? So the war is going to continue. Russia is not going to stop their summer offensive. If anything, Trump just gave them a 50-day window to pursue it as hard as they can. So what does this all mean? It means this administration is, in many ways, just an extension of the Biden administration, which was itself an extension of the first Trump administration. What did Biden do? Armed Ukraine, sanctioned Russia. What's Trump doing? Arming Ukraine, sanctioning Russia. What did Biden do? Stop deporting people. What did Trump do? He's not deporting the workers. What did Biden do? Kept the tariffs on China. What did Trump do? The same thing. What did Biden do? Sat on the Epstein files. What did Trump do? The same thing. Yes, you can point to marginal differences. Trump secured the border. He prolonged the corporate tax cuts. But in broad strokes, we are getting exactly the same policy. Trump wasn't the independent of 2016 who was going to bypass both parties and drain the swamp. In 2024, he ran as a standard Republican. He said, I work for Silicon Valley, I work for Israel, I work for Wall Street. I'm a Republican fighting the radical left. And now we're getting exactly what you'd expect from that, the same old policies. As for the war itself, in some ways, when you look at what's happening, the United States is kind of winning the Third World War. Russia is not in a good spot. They're bogged down in a 3-year war of attrition. Their allies are abandoning them. Azerbaijan and Armenia are aligning with Washington. Syria, their #1 client, got overthrown. Iran was significantly degraded by Israel, and Russia abandoned them. Russia is having to rely on North Korea for help. So whatever you think about the NATO Atlantic Empire, the United States and its allies are kind of winning this engagement. They have stopped Russia in its tracks and they are bleeding them dry. Is it good for America? Probably not. But it's good for Washington. But either way, it's a broken promise. This is not ending wars. We're still at risk of a wider conflict. And when you add that to the list of everything else, you just have a total failure. 6 months in, there's not one issue where you can claim a real victory, other than the corporate tax cuts and securing the border. The rest of it, the foreign policy, the deportations, deficit reduction, transparency, free speech, none of it is going well. It's a total failure, and another broken promise added to the pile.